where we have completed construction last year, and we were looking for the grass to grow. It's not growing. And I've asked Ms. Robinson if she would comment on that.
Lee?
Through the chairman to council, when boulevard work is disturbed as part of a construction project, we replace the boulevard with either topsoil and sod or topsoil and seed or hydro seed, depending on the location, the application, the type of work that was required, etc. The contractor is responsible for the ongoing watering and maintenance of that for the duration of the contract until the contract is completed. After that, it becomes the responsibility of the property owner, the same way it does everywhere else in the municipality. We are receiving, after the extremely dry summer we had last summer, we are receiving a lot of complaints that sod that was placed 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago is not surviving. And staff have advised that that's not something that the contractor is required to warranty, nor is it work that the county would typically go back in and replace sod from years ago that was not able to survive. Many people experienced that with their lawns. We had lots of grass that was dying over the summer last year because there simply wasn't enough water to do that.
I'm happy. I got my answer. My constituents may not be happy, but if that's what we do, that's what we do.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes, just to reply to that, we've had construction projects in Delhi with the same problem. And at one time, the residents had blamed that the topsoil did not have enough organic matter in it. It was just straight sand. I just wonder, do our tenders now call for a certain grade of organic matter in the topsoil? Because Mr. DeHaan had committed that that would be in there.
Through the chairman to council, what we specify in our contract is the Ontario provincial standards, and that specification for topsoil does have an organic content.
What's the content? What percent?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to forward you the copy of that document if you'd like to see it.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Sure.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much. I was very much surprised, Mr. Chair, when I read in our information package from several weeks ago with regard to this new piece of information for myself dealing with yard sales. And I'm sure that most of the councillors would be, as well as many of the residents. If I understand it correctly, the maximum any resident can have per year is you can only have 3 yard sales if you do 1 per day. So if you can only have 3, and you have to have 1 day, then you can have 1 the next week, and you have 1 the week after. So that's your 3 yard sales. Or you can have 1 yard sale 3 days in a row. And I'm quite sure that many of the residents that I know have a lot more yard sales than that. So I guess, and I see Mr. Barrett is not here, if that is the bylaw, are we going to enforce that?
Once again, that's something we'll have to get an answer for, so I can't help you, I guess. But hopefully somebody will take a note and we will get an answer.
Thank you very much. And whatever answer we get, unfortunately, if that's the bylaw, it's going to make a lot of people unhappy. Okay. This one here, Mr. Chair, was in our information package, a municipal policy update, waste diversion, and it reads, municipal governments will be transitioning from the Blue Box program. I didn't understand that either, so I've asked Ms. Robinson if she would explain it all to us. What are we talking about there?
Through the chairman to council, as most of us are aware, the province of Ontario is frequently updating the names of their programs, etc. This is another programming name change. And in addition to that, what the province is trying to bring in is more responsibility to the end users for their products. So for example, now we'll all remember a time where we took tires to the landfill and we had to pay to dispose of tires. Now when you buy new tires for your vehicle, you pay a fee when you purchase them that accounts for the disposal cost of them. We've done the same thing with electronics. You pay an additional fee now, and that eventually is used to pay for the disposal of it at the end of its lifestyle. Rather than paying for it at the end, you pay for it at the beginning. The province is working on bringing more programs in place where that will occur, and the purpose of that was to advise us that there is some stuff that is coming, and they're doing some pilot programs to test some other items that would be in that similar case where you would pay the disposal fees when you purchase the item.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, did you have something you wanted to talk about? Okay.
On the same issue as Councillor Wells, I read that also. On the bottom it says the first 2017 quarterly payments to municipalities is expected around June 30th. I don't know what that money, Lee, I guess, Mr. Chairman, through you to Lee. Lee, are we going to make $1 million here, or is just maybe 25, or what does that mean at the bottom there? It says we're going to get some money out of this.
Lee, you got $1 million for us?
I could use $1 million. Through the chairman to council. I found that statement also interesting that they made that. We receive quarterly payments from the province for our recyclables based on the quantity of recyclables that we actually recycle to assist us with that. That's a funding mechanism from the province. That's already accounted for in our budget. It's not extra money. They're just telling us that, yep, looks like your quarterly payment's on schedule for being released to you in June. It's nothing new. It's something that we already know for and is accounted for in our budgets.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wells. Oh, sorry, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same topic, I was under the impression that the new legislation, and I thought it had passed by the province, was going to put all of the responsibility or more financial responsibility on the producer of the waste product. Let's say the plastic bottles that come with your case of 24 bottles of water, for example. And that money was being collected from them and was going to come back to assist municipalities more effectively with our recycling program. So in other words, Ms. Robinson, I think I had assumed that there would at some point be a greater amount of money coming to the municipality to cover recycling costs. Now maybe I'm wrong, but am I thinking about the wrong thing?
I believe we're talking about the same thing. It's a matter of how it's funded. So for example, right now we're paying the fees. When you purchase tires, you pay the fees. And then the tires, you can take the tires to our transfer stations or to the landfill, and you don't pay to dispose of them. We then make a phone call when we have enough tires at our facility, and they come and they collect them at no cost to us, whereas we used to have to pay to dispose of them before. So I think we're saying the same thing. It's who's paying where, when, how. So rather than them cutting us a check, I think what they're trying to do with some of these pilot programs is figure out the best ways that make more sense to give us more money to support the program, or is it something that they should be doing like tires where they really run the program? And, we separate that stuff over there and then we make a phone call and they come and they collect that material at no cost to us. So I think this is some of the piloting program that they're doing. The idea is that at the end of the day, that money isn't coming out of the tax base.
Okay, Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I have two ratepayer suggestions coming from my ward. Sometimes we do something wonderful.
Oh, great.
And we listen and read the newspaper about Toronto and how they've put a 15% increase on new homes for foreign buyers. Ratepayer called and said he's heard us over the years complain about the fact we don't have enough money for our infrastructures. We're always behind. And so what his suggestion was, or what he asked is, would it be possible for us to put a 1% tax, I guess you would call it, on all new homes, and that 1% funding would go towards the infrastructure which we can't afford. And they are benefiting from it, obviously, because it's in place now. And I said, I don't know, but I know that somebody smarter than me would know.
David?
There are, I always admire creativity. It's a good place to start. The Municipal Act is the starting point. The City of Toronto has its own legislation, and it has unique taxation powers that the 439 municipalities in Ontario not named Toronto do not have. So the short answer is no, the Act prohibits that, so we cannot directly. That being said, in a very basic level, your development charges, that's exactly what development charges are meant to be. And for instance, we don't have those for large industrial. Norfolk County doesn't charge that. But notionally, that's the money you charge someone who wants to build something new in your community, be it a house, be it an industry, be it whatever. And you use those monies to subsidize all the services that it will access. So the short answer is you can do that if you call it something, if you call it a development charge. But you can't do a tax per se. The planners, if they were here, would kill me for referring to a development charge as a tax. You're not supposed to call it a tax, but it's money that you pay that goes to government. So I always say, you know, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
Councillor Wells?
Goes to Councillor Black. And this is from a constituent. She has listened to Councillor Black suggest that we have a garbage blowing around problem. And that when we read the report, it would cost considerable money to correct that. So what she's suggesting is we each have 2 blue boxes, one for paper and one for heavier things. And so what she does, and it doesn't cost any extra money, is she puts the paper one down on the bottom and then puts the heavier one on top of the paper, and you know what? The paper can't blow out. That's her suggestion. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate Councillor Wells bringing this one up, because that was something I had meant to ask about this evening. So if you'll permit me, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to. I too have had calls from constituents as a result of Councillor Black's suggestion of the pilot project, and I was disappointed to read, as I'm sure you all were, that it was going to be very expensive to implement. The suggestion that's been made to me, and I've spoken privately to Ms. Robinson about this before, but where citizens, like on a windy day, for example, that you could, in fact, if you're conscientious about it, you could put the contents of your blue box into a clear blue plastic bag and put it at the curb. Obviously, that's not going to blow away. And on a limited basis, I think Ms. Robinson said our contractors will pick those up and they will be disposed of and ripped open at the MRF and everything is good. So I'm wondering to Ms. Robinson, Mr. Chairman, how much we could encourage the public to use that technique as a low cost or no cost to us way of avoiding the stuff blowing all over the neighborhoods. Because that is a real problem, both in the urban areas and in the rural areas.
Through the chairman to council, on a very limited basis, it does not cause a lot of additional work. However, if everybody who was being collected on a collection day did that, it would cause considerable additional processing time. And our equipment is not designed to do that automatically. So we don't have, like some facilities actually have something basically that rips open the bags and pulls the bags out of the recyclables. We do not. It is something that can be done on a limited basis, but a fairly limited basis, and it's not something that we would want to encourage an entire area to do because of the additional costs that we'd be faced with.
Councillor Columbus?
Well, on this issue, I thought that with your papers, you could include plastic bags with your papers, and papers are the ones that blow around. So what's the difference whether you're throwing out a clear plastic bag, like the blue box accepts papers and plastic bags, so what's the difference?
The way you're supposed to place that out is all of the plastic bags are to be placed in one bag, tied, sitting on top. So they actually put it in a different spot in the truck. You shouldn't be putting plastic bags and papers all interchanged into your blue box.
I've never had a problem with it. I got a good pickup man, thanks.
Councilor Black, you're on.
Maybe just to respond to some of the counselors around the table, I'll just, feedback that I got on the garbage was, if people are responsible with their garbage, then why should everyone else, who's all the other taxpayers, have to pick up extra expense for the ones that aren't really handling their recycled or their garbage more diligently? And certainly, if I can recall, Eric, 1 year our garbage costs went up. It's because the water bottles started to come on board, and he said, explained it to us, we're transporting air. And I thought, wow, that makes sense. So he suggested compacting all those bottles, those water bottles, and I do that now. I mean, maybe it takes a little bit more time, but I get twice as much more garbage or recycled material in my boxes when I squash everything, including tin cans. And, if the suggestion for Port Dover, I do that as well. I put the one box on top of the other. So if you do pay more attention, read the instructions, and the education aspect, I think is very, very important that we explain it. It's not simple. It takes some time to deal with your garbage and with your recycling. So, and if you do, you shouldn't really have a problem. There shouldn't be all this blowing. And if you abide by the rules, putting it out the right time, not too soon, and be smart about it. Hey, it's windy today. I better either secure it better or wait. So I think it's at the very least, we had a good discussion about that topic. And I know Councillor Height mentioned the road reserve or the reserves, and my biggest concern, of course, is the road reserve that's been in the red for quite some time. And I know staff has said that they're going to bring back a report dealing with how are we going to deal with those accounts that are in the red, and that's the ones that are certainly more important to me, and in particular the roads, because I know we're getting behind, because previously Mr. DeHonda asked him that question, and he said, yes, we are underfunded in terms of our roads. So just to comment on Ron Judd, of course, I don't know if everyone knows, but Ron was a former Simcoe councillor and a great asset to this community. And the yard sales, they're controlled like all of our bylaw by complaint. And I know I've brought some ongoing yard sales to the attention of Fritz, and Fritz has gone out, and the yard sale disappears and then pops up again. And there's one on number 3 highway. You drive by it all the time. And it's still there. Only, a few pieces of furniture are out now, but every day they're out there. So it's only done by complaint. And really the thing that I wanted to mention was the fact that I really appreciate Bob Fields and Public Works I thought it was a very good promotional thing to send out the letter of thank you to the people of Simcoe for conserving water. There was a problem at the Cedar Street well fields that they had to sort of close that down, which reduced the capacity, water capacity for the people in Simcoe. Public Works and Mr. Fields put out a call to the people of Simcoe to reduce their consumption, and in fact they did over the 4-day period by, I think it was some 42%. So it was very good of Public Works, I think, to acknowledge that from the people of Simcoe, and just congratulating everybody that asked them to do something, and they responded.
Councilor Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 8 items. I'll try to get it done here as quick as no.
8 items?
No, I just have 2, and I kind of 2 requests, if I may. First one is, and I've been following this for a couple of years, is a Dingle Creek. Many of you know that's a project we've undertaken, and it's a municipal drain. I have followed it, gone to a couple of the, I call them hearings, quarter revision or whatever at the courthouse back, but I know it's been moved on, and I'm just wondering if we could ask Lee and maybe our county manager to have a little in-camera session, because there's quite a bit of legal, I'll use the word, where our lawyers are involved. So I wonder if a little update at some point, not too long down the line here. And I have a great concern of what's going on there in terms of, and I use the word delay. So if we could maybe just have that looked at, I think it would be interesting session. My second one is, I gave to this council a while back.
Sorry, Doug, can I just ask Lee to answer to that?
Through the chairman to council, staff would be happy to provide an update. As it currently stands right now, we can't really provide an update because we're still waiting for another session to take place. So once that takes place, we'll be in a position to advise what we can do to move forward. We're in a holding pattern right now until such time as we get a ruling, the next date occurs. And that is, my understanding is that is the last ability to appeal anything. So that will be final at that point. So we'll be able to move forward and provide that. What I can do is I will get the information from staff for when that is currently scheduled, so that we'll be able to tell you when we'll be able to provide an update after that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to wait, but I am concerned with what's been happening, and I know there's a substantial cost involved and things like that. So, that's fine. I'll wait, but I do think we need some kind of an update once we get. I believe, Lee, the next meeting's in Hamilton, scheduled for Hamilton, not too distant future.
That's my understanding, although it's been changed a few times.
Well, if we could perhaps get some feedback on that, then hopefully it'll be a go. But if not, on the same token, I just have some concerns on where the whole thing is, how it's been handled, not by our staff, but by other parties. So I'll leave it at that till I hear back from you, I guess. My other concern, Mr. Chairman, if I may, some time ago I gave all this members of council and our treasurer an investment brochure from CIBC that dealt with investments from, it's a separate branch of CIBC that dealt with investments with the County of Haldimand, who have made some substantial returns, and LPRCA, we are using that same company with our investments there. And I'm not sure if James is privy to that information, if he got to see it or not from John. And I know the county manager probably hasn't seen it, but I can certainly provide copies of that. And my point is this: another year is approaching in August on our investments. And my concern is I think, I'm not saying what we should be doing, but I think we owe it to the taxpayers to certainly listen to this group to see if there's a better possibility of an investment out there where we can make a better return. So, again, James, you might want to comment, but I'll leave it at that.
James?
Through the chair, I'm actually very well aware of that group because I dealt with them in Haldimand County.
Okay.
They take over doing all the investment, not all the investments, but they actually do the legwork behind it, and they get some fees related to that as well. Regarding our investments, we have long-term investments with our legacy fund, and then we have very short-term investments with GICs and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, our cash flow situation with Norfolk County is not, it doesn't give us privy to use medium or long-term investments because of our reserve situation. So if we had a better cash situation for long-term investments, absolutely, we would be looking into different firms. See, I happen to like the CIBC one when I dealt with them in Haldimand. But we don't have that situation right now. The legacy fund that we have with LAS, the one fund is another term that they use for it, they're able to be a little bit more flexible because it is municipally sponsored in the investments that they do. So, and there's a council policy that was passed by council that that money is going to stay there. So we can't take money from that legacy fund and investment using other instruments. So that's the long and the short of it.
Well, I guess my concern is that I certainly have not been happy with the return that we've got on $67 million, but that's only my opinion. We at Long Point have dealt with this company, and I know what kind of returns Haldeman have got, and maybe we are in a different position, James, but I'm wondering if does it hurt to have these people at least speak to this council and tell us what they think?
Through the chair, absolutely. The more information, the better. I agree with that. And we can meet, the finance can meet with them as well and see what kind of investments that they are using. I believe the legacy fund, last time John reported on it, we had about 4.2% return on it, which, you know, we haven't had that legacy fund going for a long period of time, and the longer you have investments, then the better your return is, in theory. So, and I'm not sure what you're talking about with Haldeman's return as well. I'd have to take a look at what those are and what kind of investment instruments that they used.
Well, they're substantially above 4%. I know that, substantially. But again, it's a different, you know, they're in a different investment area where the money is tied up longer. I know that in some cases. But all I'm saying is I'm going to provide it to the county manager, and if you've already seen it, I guess you don't need to see it. And all I'm saying is, does it hurt to listen to these people? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hyde on this subject?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Further to that, the legacy fund itself is sitting in, and we get what, an annual report, is that not right, on what it does for it? But that committee, do you meet more than annually?
Mr. Chairman, if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the committee, I think, meets twice a year. We get a report from the investment manager once a year.
Okay. So, like further to what the treasurer said, because of the cash crunch, you're not able to diversify the investments, but the legacy fund is in one single investment, literally one single investment now, or is it bounced around and there's money taken and...
The one fund investment, to get into a little bit more detail, it's actually split into 4 streams, I guess you can say. We have a small amount in a high interest savings, just to because it's more liquid. We can get and that's specifically the interest. We can take it out of there without affecting the longer term investments. There's a balanced fund. There's a growth fund in there, and those are funds, and then within that, there is a investment company that works on behalf of the one fund that would put it into whatever they need to put it into to earn their income.
Like during the course of operations, do you go into the short-term investment side of the legacy fund and pull money for operating?
Through the chair, no, we don't do that. The only time we would pull money from the one fund is the interest that is earned. And through meetings with the committee, we would determine what we'd use that interest for. For example, in the policy, $2 million of it is pulled and it has to be used for capital purposes.
Okay, I remember that. Like, and at the Conservation Authority for councils, what we've decided to do is we've split some of our I don't know, legacy fund at their side of things, and we've split some of it and taken, say, 30% and put it in a little higher risk fund, which is the one that Councillor Brunton spoke of. We expect to get some excellent returns this year. So you could technically do the same thing with the legacy fund. Because you're under this, like the Conservation Authority is under the same investment guidelines as the municipalities, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. And within the one fund, they do have different avenues in there in order to invest in a higher risk and medium risk, and we can choose what stream that we want, and we have it pretty diversified very well within that one fund.
And they take their share, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have 10 items, but I'm only going to talk about one. I'd thought I'd get you. Actually, my question goes to Lee. I want to talk about my Bailey Bridge. There are people who are beginning to complain because the truckers will follow their GPS and go down the road without thinking and not seeing the signs until they get to the Bailey Bridge. So do you ever try and back up a tractor trailer up a hill? No place to turn around right now. If you can put it, you can bury it in the mud out there. So where are we? And I thought this was supposed to be fixed a long time ago now. Do we have any idea as to when we're going to deal with it?
Through the chairman to council, I'm just looking up to see if I have the most recent update. We don't have it listed that way. Can you refresh my memory for which?
The Bailey Bridge on
45?
45, yeah.
Thank you.
Not 45 on that section, but anyway.
Yep. I don't have that information. I will get that and provide it to you.
Okay.
In the meantime, if we're still having that problem, we can see about doing some increased signage before they turn onto the road to try to avoid getting them stuck down in there.
I'm not sure all the truckers can read the signs, so that's the only other problem.
I'm going to repurpose some signs from Long Point.
Okay, now, closed session. I'm going to need a mover that this committee convene in closed session at 6:28. Sorry? Yeah? Oh, yeah, sorry, I could give them a chance. Yes, sorry. James?
I have nothing to add. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Candy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a very brief item, which is an update and a request regarding the insurance program comprehensive review report. You recall that staff have committed to reviewing the insurance program and bringing a report forward to council. You may recall that on the action items listing, we've targeted the report to come forward to council in May of this year. In fact, staff was targeting May the 16th. However, as you are aware, we have another file that is taking a priority. Staff have been working diligently on the report, but as well, we would like to have the opportunity to speak to Mr. Cribbs about the draft report, and we do have a meeting scheduled with him for May the 24th. So what we are asking is for council to agree to a 1-month extension, and that staff would bring that report forward on June the 20th.
Questions? Yep, okay. Okay. Melissa, anything?
Thank you. In celebration of Canada 150, I just wanted to let you know that a collaborative exhibit opened yesterday at the Waterford, Delhi, and Port Dover museums, and it's called Family Ties, a Canada 150 project, and it tells the story of 150 Norfolkians, past and present. And they've each taken a different approach to their exhibit and their presentations. And for example, Port Dover filmed a number of oral histories of their residents and have put it into a 1.5-hour film. Really important work and capturing those memories. So I encourage you to get out and see it. It's on until December 15th, so no excuses not to get there.
County Manager, anything? No, thank you. Okay. Lee, anything?
Nothing this evening.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Nothing? Okay. Clerk? Nothing?
Nothing this evening,
Okay.
thank you.
Let's try this again then. That the committee commence in a closed session at 6:31 now p.m. to discuss 2 property-related matters pursuant to Section 239C of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended as the subject matter pertains to proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. All those in favor? We're in camera. Thank you. Who'd you have? I'll get it. Councilor Luke. Mayor Luke. There you go. Okay, turn this one.